Good day, everyone. Kim Bayless here from CFB Kingston with you today for a flexibility mobility. Today we're going to be focusing on our ankles. So this is to gain our range of motion through the ankle in order to improve our squat. That's what today's focus is going to be on. So in recent research over the past few years, it has come down to the ankle, not necessarily the hip. Back in the day, they said you don't have enough hip flexibility, and that's why you cannot squat properly. But more recent research has shown that it's actually due to the ankle. The best way to know whether it is the ankle or not is to place a shim under the ankle, approximately 1 inch to 1/2 inch, something that's going to mimic anything that's going to raise up your heels so that when you go down into your squat, you'd have those shims there, squat down, and see if your squat improves. That's the best way to know, is my ankle mobility limited? So the ankle mobility, the reason why there's such a big focus here is because of the squat. One of the most fundamental movements that we do and are required to do for fitness, but also day-to-day life, picking up our groceries, whatever it may be. So we want to really focus on loosening up those muscles around the ankle and also strengthening the tibialis anterior so that we can gain that ankle mobility. Now remember, nothing happens overnight. This is something that you would need to do continuously in order to gain that and see that improvement. When we go to the floor, you will need some things with you, so a dowel, broomstick handle, something to that effect. I did bring out a couple different rollers, a lacrosse ball, really easy to get your hands on, as well as any type of roller. So these are the items that you are going to require for today's mobility session. When it comes to the squat, the reason why the ankle is so important as its mobility is because it's going to determine the position of the knee. How far forward the knee can go is going to be based on that ankle flexibility when we go down into the squat. How far forward our knee can go is going to determine our femur position, and then that's also going to determine our pelvic position. Our pelvic position is going to determine our upper body position, our spine position, and that forward lean that we see is usually in regards to that ankle mobility, shimming properly, getting more upright to try to get the femur and the torso to the proper position so that we can squat properly. So let's start with one of our rollers. I'm going to start with that main one to begin, and we're going to start rolling through our calf. Now this could be done daily, could be done a couple times a day, but it's going to be best served if you do this right before you do your squatting, because we want to increase that range of motion prior to our squat patterning movements. So this seems to be the most popular roller, the larger roller, easy to get your hands on one of these. We're going to add some flexion at the ankle. So as we do that contraction, we're getting a little deeper into the muscle there. We can also do a little bit of a circle there. Now, if you don't have a lacrosse ball, that's fine. Stay with the roller that you do have. I'm just going to switch to the ball here for those of you that is what you have. Now, with that smaller surface area, you can get into some little smaller areas within the calf as you're rolling. Again, we can add that flexion at the ankle, contract the calf as we roll. So as we're rolling through here, we want to do that contraction also to get into the tibialis anterior. Remember, I had mentioned strengthening the tibialis anterior as well. So that's a good way to loosen up the calf as well as strengthen our tibialis anterior, both at the same time, killing two birds with one stone. Excellent, and let's move to the other side. Again, for those of you with the large roller, I'm just going to go back to that briefly here, and then I'll go back to the lacrosse ball as well, so whatever is at your disposal here. The surface area of the roller that I'm using here now is going to target a lot larger spot within the movement, whereas our surface area of the ball is very small. So that's where we can get into those little spots. So having both, there's definitely a benefit here to having both of these in order to get target through the whole calf right now, which is what I am doing at this time. And then when I do the switch into the lacrosse ball one, that target area is smaller, so I can get into those little spots. But also, there's a little less give. A lacrosse ball, very, very tough. If you've ever given one to your dog, for example, they are like indestructible. Great tool for dogs too. But there's a little bit of give here in these rollers, so depending on what type of roller you have, that give is also going to not allow you to get as deep in as you may wish to get, especially if you're really tight through there. You want to make sure that you're not creating a huge amount of pain. You should not feel that you've bruised yourself or that it's so painful that you cannot stand it. Yes, it's going to be painful. We want to work through that area, but when we're done, it should feel really good, and when we go back again the next day, let's say, we should not feel that there's any bruising in that area. So make sure we're getting like that deep tissue, but not so deep that it's so painful. Remember, we're getting that contraction. Contract the foot up, strengthening our tibialis anterior, but also contracting that muscle as we're rolling through it to try to loosen it up. Excellent. So if you don't have that lacrosse ball to your disposal, something else that you can do is also a self-massage. The hands can get tired very quickly, which is why that's going to be your best option. But to get into those little spots, if you're feeling like you just really can't get in somewhere, and then getting in with the fingers and really working it, run it up through that area, and try to get in there as much as possible, especially for those tight areas. Next, we're gonna go into the foot. Rolled away on me there. So here I do have a footballer. If you have the footballer, of course it's the very same thing as having the roller vice your lacrosse ball. It does work, they both work well. It's just we're targeting very much a larger area here with this footballer as we roll through. And it's also really good with the footballer to create a little bit of a stretch here so I can draw my knee forward. I'm feeling that in my soleus as my toes are on top there. So I can kind of get that roll and that stretch that we've just rolled our calves. So we always want to loosen before we do our stretching portion, right? So for those of you with the ball, I'm just going to do a quick switch here. And the same thing applies, as I said before, those smaller little areas, also harder surface area to roll on. Make sure that you're getting into your arches, make sure you're getting to the outside of the foot, make sure you're getting into the heel. We want to roll through the entire foot and search for where we carry the most tension. Similar to the calf, if we need to get in there somewhere with our hands that we just can't seem to get into, we're going to do the same thing with the foot here and the ball. You can use a hockey ball is a great other option. A golf ball would even work in this case. Surface area is very small, it's hard enough. Unfortunately, tennis ball doesn't really seem to cut it. It's just too squishy. So I can still create flexion by spreading my toes and then crunching them. Spreading and then crunching them around the ball or the roller. And we're going to switch sides. So again, I'm going to go to the footballer first. Roll it through. Your feet should be almost side by side here as we're doing this rolling. So we can get as much weight as we can over top of that roller. But also we are engaging our stabilizers on that other side. I can get my little stretch in here, draw my knee forward, my heels down. Foot's up on the roller, feeling that through the soleus a little bit. We're going to do some more stretching later, so don't worry if you just have that lacrosse ball. We're going to use the dowel for some stretching, as well as, of course, the wall, etc. There's many options for doing our stretches for the calf and soleus. Those of you with ball, going to do a quick switch here. Again, we're getting into the little portions of the foot. Contraction as well, remembering that we're flexing and extending the foot. Getting through the whole foot, so we're in the arches, we're into the heels. Make sure we're doing a full roll in all positions. All right, let's do a little quick stretch for the feet before we move on. This one's very simple. So we're gonna get our toes side by side, and then we're just gonna draw our knees forward to the floor and sit our weight back. So we should be feeling this through the bottom of the foot, up through the main toe there, our big toe, our first metatarsal. If you feel that you can't reach the floor, we also have that roller, remember? So you can place your knees down onto the roller. This would be possibly that starting position for you, or something else, maybe even just a rolled up towel, whatever, your rolled up yoga mat, something that's gonna just give you an option to work your way down until you can eventually reach the floor and you're feeling that Excellent. So we can revisit that at any time as well. Just make sure that we've done our rolling first before we do our stretches. That's when it's going to be most beneficial for us. Next, we're going to just draw our knee past our toes, making sure that our heel does not lift up. Our instep is going to stay down as well. And we're just going to track our knee across, open, and then to the medial side. So lateral to medial, and you're searching for where you feel the most tension, where it's the most snug, the most tight. So right now we're just doing a little bit of a distraction type of tool here. Try to deepen our stretch as we move along. Use your body weight. As you can see, I'm hunkered down on top of that leg, trying to use my body weight to force as much as I can for that range. Excellent. Next, we're going to grab our broomstick, our dowel, whatever we have to our disposal. And we're going to place it down to the outside of the foot. Then we're going to track the knee to the inside of the foot. And we're going to draw outwards. You may feel this a little bit through the hip, but mainly we're focused on using that dowel to straighten our leg if we need to. So I have a mirror here that I can see my dowel is nice and straight in my plane. This is going to open the hip a little bit, but like I said, that mainly that medial side is where our focus is here. Excellent. Let's do our traction on the other side. So weight on top of our leg, tracking medial to lateral side. Excellent. After using that distraction technique, let's grab our dowel, the upper outer side of our foot, knee tracking to the inside is where we're going to feel that. And then we extend out, make sure our instep stays down. We do our check with our dowel. You may notice a difference side to side as well, not just on the medial lateral. So our medial lateral, you may have felt a difference, like one side's a little more lateral, one side's a little more central or medial. That's of course just based on our movement patterns. So when we're walking or anything that we're doing, we adapt our bodies. So sometimes, for example, if you drive a lot, that foot being rotated out on that gas pedal is going to create a little bit of rotation, and that's coming upward throughout the body. So that natural foot position is going to be a little more extended outwards just because of that movement that we are doing so often. But not just that, also you may find just the hip is feeling a little bit different on that side. These are all things to pay attention to. so that we know where we can tackle and where we need to work most. Excellent. Let's go back to our stretch here with the toes. So again, toes down. Make sure that they are straight across level. Draw our knee weight forward. Sitting up. Excellent. We're going to move to the upper calf here next. So we're going to need a wall for this. Placing our toes up as high as we can on that wall. Then we're going to lean forward into that stretch. Coming back out of it, going a little more medial. We can add that distraction. Get a little bit deeper. Coming out, move a little more lateral side. And then you'll find that you should be able to get a little closer to the wall without moving the heel or the toe position. Couple of distractions, and then we're just going to hold. Excellent. Let's move to the other side. Toes up nice and high, lean forward, add the distraction. After a couple distractions, hold in that position. Excellent. Now I have one more for you before we start into the strengthening of our tibialis anterior. So we're almost done here. If anyone notices that they may have a difference on one side to the other, so sitting in position and we pull our toes back toward us, is there a difference from side to side? So is one big toe able to flex more than the other? So that's what we want to determine. If you do have one side that's more flexed than the other, then we want to make sure that we can get that other one up to where the other is and then make that improvement. So if we want to focus on that specifically, what you can do is put the toe under distraction. So if we pull back in position, not very much seems to really necessarily happen, but if we do distraction, pull up and then down, you probably find that you're going to gain just a slight bit of range there for that pull. So that's just a little tidbit for anyone that feels and sees that they have a difference from side to side, so that you want to focus on that, and you may want to focus on that toe stretch a little bit more for yourself. So next one, we're going to be sitting upright, and we're going to focus on pulling our feet up toward us so that we're engaging through our shins, our tibialis anterior. Holding our contraction here. And release. Shake it out, allow it to relax, and then we're going to flex and tense again. Keeping our hold, and relax. Shake it out. And again. And relax. Now you may also do this exercise, or may have seen it done with a band around the foot tied to a pole of some sort, something that's very supportive, and then flexing against the band to get that tibialis anterior position. If you have a band and something to your disposal, that is another excellent tibialis anterior one that you can do. We can also use our dowel here, press on the foot and create some resistance there that we're going to press against. Now just remember, if you're barefoot necessarily or something that might be sharp there, that you may just want to have a little padding there. But if you don't have any other options, just doing this with your own musculature is certainly, you're going to feel that. Doing about 10 times with a 10-second hold, a little shake in between, you're certainly going to be improving that. I hope you enjoyed today's mobility session. Now, as you're doing these, as you do this along, please make sure that you are checking your squat, see how it's working for you, and trying to get away from always wearing running shoes. So of course, when we're lifting, we need to be in them for the gym. But outside of that, when you're doing this stuff and we're doing our stretches, and even just getting into a squat without that position, with that position, that squat, deep down, opening up, so that we're not always reliant on having our heels lifted in our running shoes. Thank you for joining me today, and take care.
PSP Kingston, the health and wellness provider for the military community.